Grand Cathay are the first of the human factions that we're looking at in Warhammer 3. They are a people focused on trade and harmony in everything they do, and both of these things can be utilised to great effect. They are also the first line of defence against chaos, with the Great Bastion being a literal wall between their lands and the Chaos Wastes, so you're going to be defending yourself from incursions more than most other factions. Let's begin by outlining the pros and cons of Grand Cathay campaign gameplay. For the pros, they have a very robust economy with the caravans, fruitful lands, and great potential for lots of trading. Once you get in control of the Bastion, it's also pretty easy to keep your lands safe from demon incursions, as long as you keep them growing quickly and maybe have some support armies nearby. And if you can stay on top of harmony, you basically do everything better, so your already powerful faction is even better in pretty much every single way. As for the cons, once all Cathay lands under your control, you don't really have anywhere nearby to expand since all the surrounding lands aren't the most habitable. If you don't get on top of Bastion management early on, it can be hard to stop with the constant drip feed of chaos coming into your lands, and eventually the legendary chaos factions will turn up. And finally, the constant back and forth of harmony can be hard to manage, as you have to remember everything going on in your faction to maintain the balance properly. Grand Cathay have two playable factions. The first is the Northern Provinces, led by Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon. For her faction effects, she's granted -2 Corruption, 10% leadership when fighting Demons of Chaos, and 20% ammunition for all missile units. For her army, she grants -50% upkeep for missile infantry units, and she contributes +3 yin to the faction. She starts in Nangao on the far east of the map, along the Great Bastion to the north of Cathay, and her starting army has Celestial Dragon Guard, 2 Jade Warriors, Peasant Long Spearmen, Celestial Dragon Crossbowmen, Peasant Archers, Peasant Horsemen, and a Sky Junk. For her climate preferences, she has Temperate, Savannah and Desert being suitable, Wasteland, Mountain, Temperate Island and Jungle being unpleasant, and Frozen, Magical Forest, Ocean and Chaotic Wasteland being uninhabitable. For her expansion options, the initial war takes you to the south into more Cathay lands, up until the Great Maw. After that, you can head north to wipe out the Siege faction and secure another province, as well as 2 gates if you time it right. After that, you can attempt to take control of the regular Cathay lands, either through confederations or wars, and once all of Cathay is under your control, there isn't really much in the way of habitable lands until you get to Kislev, so you can keep to yourself, or head past the moor into the mountains to take on the ogres, where the lands are at least unsuitable rather than totally uninhabitable, like the Chaos Waste to the north. The other faction is the Western Provinces. They are led by Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon. For their faction effects, they are granted 20% maximum cargo capacity for caravans, +5 recruit rank for alchemists, -25% upkeep for ogre mercenary units, and +15 armor for all melee units. For his army, he is granted 100% to the magical item drop chance, -25% upkeep for melee units, and contributes 3 yang to the faction. He starts in Hanyu Port on the southeast border where Grand Cathay meets the Great Maw and the Ogre Kingdoms. His starting army has 2 Jade Warriors, 3 Peasant Long Spearmen, 3 Peasant Archers, Great Longma Riders, and a Fire Rain Rocket. He has the exact same climate preferences as Miao Ying, and the starting war takes you to the north towards Miao Ying, and will allow you to secure 2 entire provinces if you move quickly enough. After that's been done, you can head back to the southeast to take down the Greenskins in Kwang, and maybe even the Burning Wind Nomads if you can't convince them to hand over their lands in any other way. Then it's the same story as Miao. You can take control of all of Cathay either via war or diplomacy, then choose to stay put, or make the journey through the Ogre Kingdoms in search of more habitable lands beyond. Now we come to the faction mechanics. First up we have Harmony. This is everywhere in the faction. It is affected by technology researched, buildings, characters such as lords and heroes you recruit, and certain events in the faction. Maintaining the balance of harmony and having an equal amount of both yin and yang will net you all kinds of powerful bonuses, such as massively improved income, growth, and even some abilities to use in battle. However, if the balance starts to tip too far to one side, then you will still gain bonuses for buildings on that side of the scales. However, buildings from the other side will massively suffer, and you'll have control issues across your lands. This can be quite a challenge to always keep balanced, as you must remember what is being built, researched, and recruited at all times, but it is worth the hassle as the bonuses truly are powerful. We also have the Great Bastion. The Great Bastion is of course the wall that separates Grand Cathay from the Chaos Tide that creeps ever closer. The threat level of the Bastion is constantly rising, and once the bar fills up, more armies will appear and attempt to breach your walls. To keep the threat low, you can enact commandments in the 3 gates, as well as keeping them under your control. You can also eliminate the factions that are causing the threat to increase, though venturing out past the gates will cause you attrition and put a massive target on your head, so proceed with caution. The Wujing Compass, like most compasses, has 4 main directions, but unlike most compasses, you can choose which direction it's pointing every 10 turns, but this can be reduced via various buildings and technologies. Doing this nets you 4 different sets of bonuses depending on the direction and how long it stays there. Some bonuses always remain active, and their strength varies depending on the amount of energy reserve left in that direction. The Great Bastion grants more defensive supplies during settlement battles and casualty replenishment rates. When it is the active direction, it grants -2% Great Bastion threat per turn, -10% recruitment cost, and the Celestial Intervention army ability for all battles within Cathay. Celestial Lake grants growth, and when it is the active direction, it also grants increased income and winds of magic. Warpstone Desert has no passive effects, and when it is active it grants -4 corruption and -6 enemy leadership at the cost of Winds of Magic strength. And finally, the Dragon Emperor's Wrath grants control, and when it is the active direction, it charges the reserve and allows you to trigger extreme attrition to all enemy armies beyond the Great Bastion for 5 turns. Their final mechanic is the Ivory Road. The Ivory Road is of course the great trading lane from Cathay all the way back to the Old World and even beyond. It allows you to send caravans into the world with cargo that can be sold for a considerable profit on the other end. To initiate a caravan, you click into the Ivory Road screen and select a lord to lead them. These lords will level up over the course of the campaign, and they have unique skills to assist them in their caravanning duties. Once you've chosen a lord, you need to choose a destination. The value of the route is determined by 2 factors. The distance, as destinations further away will earn more money, and the threat level. If it is a dangerous path to your destination, then you will be more rewarded for the risk. You can tell the threat level via the sword indicators on each stage of the journey. A more dangerous path normally means more events where you can be ambushed and either lose units or cargo, or choose to stand and fight. There are also a lot of other events that occur aside from combat, such as coming across other groups travelling the road and recruiting some of them into your army, even if they are from other factions. As long as your lads make it to the destination, you'll get your pay and they'll make the journey back and be ready to go again, more often than not, with a lot of unique items. Let's now go through the Lord's skills. First up we have Xing. Her blue tree has all the usuals you'd expect to see here. Route Marcher, Control, Recruitment Cost Reduction, Attrition Reduction, Cleanse and Corruption, Lightning Strike, Upkeep Reductions, Replenishment, Ambush, and the Great Bastion for all kinds of powerful effects. Her red tree is of course full of buffs for your units, so pick some up for the key units in your army, and you want to pick up any spells you can from her mix of the Laws of Yin and Life. The yellow tree of course buffs herself, so if you want to have her as more of a one-man army, then spend some time here. The Aura of Majesty line is unique to her and has some powerful buffs for pretty much everything in the faction. And finally, the top row has missile and spell resistances. Zhao Ming has the exact same blue and red trees as Miao Ying, then you can pick up any of his spells from the mix of Yang and Metal, then the same again for his yellow tree to buff him into a one-man army. The Master of Metal line is unique to him and buffs himself and the faction in various ways, and you can also pick up the Master of Alchemy line, which lets you buff his damage in one of 3 ways. And finally, his top row has missile and spell resistances, a ward save area ability, boost to his army's weapon strength, and melee attacks. The Dragon-Blooded Shogun has the exact same blue and red trees as the other 2. You can pick up spells from their chosen law, either Yin or Yang, to get that magical value in your battles. They have a unique line that allows them to pick a choice of bound spells for extra value, and they have 2 mount options, the Warhorse for some mobility, and the Jade Longma for even more mobility, flight, and devastating charge and damage. The rest of the top row has an augment, missile and spell resistance, and of course immortality. The Lord Magistrates have of course the exact same blue and red trees as the rest. The yellow tree has buffs for themselves in combat to make them better at pretty much everything. The Tactician line is unique to them and has a number of powerful army abilities to choose from. They have 2 mounting options of the Warhorse for some increased mobility, and the Sky Lantern for a ton of ranged firepower and flight at the cost of some speed, and essentially being a giant balloon target. The rest of the top row has an augment, missile and spell resistance, and of course immortality. And finally, the Caravan Masters. Now these have a very unique tree entirely based around caravans since they are the only armies they can lead. The blue tree is where most of the unique stuff is kept. You have skills for reducing the cost of shortcuts, reducing the chance of being ambushed, reducing attrition and buffing replenishment, selling cargo for more money, and being able to carry more of it. The red tree, yellow tree, and Tactician are all the exact same as the Lord Magistrate, and then the top row has skills for even more caravan event buffs, a single mount of a Warhorse, leadership for the army, spell and missile resist, and strangely, no immortality. So once you lose these guys, they are gone. Coming to the heroes now, first up we have the Alchemist. On the campaign map, these can damage buildings, assassinate enemy heroes, hinder replenishment, boost income in the local province, and increase mobility when embedded in an army. Since these are your campaign map assassins, you can of course choose to keep them there and focus on the blue line to improve these actions, which are basically everything on the blue tree aside from increased mobility. If you're going to be putting them into your armies, then increased mobility is all you want in blue before heading right into their spell lines and picking up whatever you want from there. The Enchanted Metallurgy line gives them the ability to buff damage in one of 3 ways, and on the top row they can grab a Warhorse mount, as well as missile and spell resist, and of course immortality. The Astromancers on the campaign map can steal technology, wound enemy heroes, block armies, spread control in the local province, and provide scouting when embedded in an army. I don't really see a reason to keep these lads on the campaign map, since you have no problem increasing research speed via other methods, so keep them in your armies and build them almost exclusively for this. This means grabbing all the spells you want, and with the Law of Heavens, you'll want a lot of them. After this you can choose the Warhorse or Wujing Compass mounts, which we'll cover in more detail in the battle video. And finally you can finish up some spell and missile resist, and of course immortality. Now we come to the commandments. For the majority of your settlements, you can use the Sea Dragon's Edict, which grants you 5% income from trade faction-wide, the Fire Dragon's Edict, which grants you -5% recruitment cost, and +1 to local recruitment capacity. The Storm Dragon's Edict provides -20% campaign move range for any enemy armies starting their turn in the region, -5 corruption, and +5 melee defense for local armies. The Iron Dragon's Edict provides 7% research rate, and the Jade Dragon's Edict provides 4 control and minus 40% chance of a plague spreading. The Great Bastion settlements have unique commandments all of their own. The Great Bastion Reinforced provides 25 growth and minus 20% construction cost for all buildings province-wide. The Bastion Patrolled grants minus 1% Great Bastion threat per turn and minus 5 corruption. The Bastion Enhanced grants 200 XP per turn to local armies, and the Bastion Restored grants 6% replenishment rate. And finally, the research tree. The Cathay research tree is shaped like 3 bushes connected to the central tree. Each bush contains a number of techs for yin and yang and come with everything you'd expect from research. We're talking about unit and infrastructure buffs of various kinds. Of course, the deeper into the main tree you go, the more buffs you'll find for more advanced units and buildings. I basically chose techs based on what units I was using and which side of the harmony needed padding out. That way I kept things balanced whilst also buffing my armies. If you keep going like this all the way until the end, then you should pick up most of the useful branches as well as the main tree before you know it. And that is everything you need to know about the campaign gameplay of Grand Cathay. If you enjoyed this video, then do consider leaving a like and of course subscribe to see more videos like this, including the Grand Cathay Battle Guide coming next Monday. They are one truly explosive faction, so you definitely don't want to miss that. Leave any questions you have in the comments below and I'll answer them as best I can. If you'd like to support the channel, then you can become a member here on YouTube, subscriber on Twitch, or a patron on Patreon. Doing so gets you shoutouts at the end screen, like Dominic Shamas, and of course Henry Tucker for his support at the Unclean Ones tier. Thank you all so very much for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.